Our feature film this week is a film called Days of Heaven. It's made in the late 1970s by a director named Terrence Malick. Malick is an American director who has not made a great many films, but each of the films that he has made has generally been very well received in an artistic and a critical sense. So, Malick is the director of Days of Heaven, and his career is a great example of the idea that different directors work at very different paces. There are some directors who basically make a movie every year. Uh, they have a new film that comes out every single year, and they spend about a year's worth of time working on each of their movies. Malick is a director that is sort of the opposite of that. He works very, very slowly. In fact, his next film after Days of Heaven, which came out in 1978, was not until 20 years later in 1998. He has a creative process in terms of the conception and the sort of gestation and the pre-production of his movies, and the entire production process of his movies that takes a very long time. He has quickened his pace a little bit since 1998. He had another movie come out in 2005, and then another movie after that in 2011, but he works relatively slowly compared to most directors. Part of the reason for this is that he is known for being especially meticulous and especially methodical and detail oriented when it comes to his narratives and to his use of style in his movies. Every frame of every movie, the detail of the mise en scène, and the care with which the cinematography and camera work is executed is very evident in his movies, and you will see that and see quite a few examples of that in your screening of Days of Heaven. Another thing that characterizes Malick's work is that he's not particularly interested in story or in telling stories that have a strong narrative or are strongly plotted in nature. His movies are definitely not of the action film variety. There is, from a strict plot sense or a strict action sense, often not a lot that goes on in his movies. He has, as many directors do, rather an emphasis on the characters, on the setting, and on the atmosphere. The characters of his movies are one of the things he's most interested in, developing those characters, portraying the interrelationships among those characters, even when it doesn't always result in a lot of action in his movies. Really lavishing a lot of attention on the settings of his movies. Uh, Days of Heaven is set in the 19 teens, most of it on a wheat farm in Texas, and you will see a lot of attention paid to that setting, both in terms of a lot of detail having gone into creating the mise en scène of that setting, but also in terms of the cinematography and the way in which the camera, at many points in the movie, sort of lavishes on that setting and showing us different details of that setting, going into a great deal of detail as to what happens in that setting and so forth, and also in regards to atmosphere. There is definitely distinct atmosphere that is created through the mise en scène and through the various aspects of cinematography in Days of Heaven. These are the main performers in Days of Heaven. The lead role in the movie, a young laborer named Bill, is probably an actor that you're familiar with, named Richard Gere. You are probably familiar with him in his current stage of his career, which is more towards the end of his career. He's obviously a much older looking person now than he is in this picture, and than he is that you will see in the movie in Days of Heaven. But Days of Heaven was one of his first films that he appeared in the late 1970s, at the very beginning of his career, and I think still arguably one of his best roles that he has ever appeared in, probably. His girlfriend in the movie, who poses as his sister, is played by Brooke Adams. His real sister in the movie is played by Linda Mons, whose name in the movie is also Linda. And then the farmer who owns the wheat farm upon which the other three work as migrant workers is played by Sam Shepard. Sam Shepard is a name that you might possibly recognize depending on how familiar you are with American theater. Sam Shepard is a well known playwright, a well known American playwright, who also has had a pretty active acting career in a number of different films and stage roles. And one of the roles that he had was playing the farmer in Days of Heaven. So Days of Heaven is renowned for its cinematography, which is, of course, the reason why I select it as the feature that we watch during the week that we are studying cinematography. Its cinematographer, Nestor Almendros, won the Academy Award for cinematography the year that Days of Heaven was released. And so Days of Heaven is well known for the quality of its cinematography and the artistry of its cinematography, especially in terms of its use of light. There is a very unique and special way in which the light is used in many parts of Days of Heaven. Many of the scenes of the movie were shot at a particular time of the day that is referred to as the magic hour, or sometimes as the golden hour, or golden time. This is the period of time every day just after sunset, literally just after the sun has disappeared below the horizon, but before it gets completely dark out. So there is still quite a bit of light in the sky immediately after the sun has set, and that light has a very particular quality. It has a very golden, sort of glowing quality because the sun is below the horizon of the earth, but much of the golden, yellow, orangish glow of the sun is still visible in the sky. And so the filmmakers, Almendros and Malick, for Days of Heaven, exploited that light quality, or the quality of the light at that time, and used it to create a very distinct look and a very distinct atmosphere for Days of Heaven. So watch for that as you are watching the movie, and you'll see many examples of that magic hour golden glow of the light in Days of Heaven. The film is a period piece set in Texas in the 19 teens. This idea of a period piece is an important one for you to know and to understand. Many films are referred to as period pieces. And what that means is that a film, of course, is made at a particular time, whenever it was shot and whenever it actually went through the production process when it was made and released originally to movie theaters. And for Days of Heaven, that is 1978. It was made in 1977, 78, roughly. But is set in a different time. The movie is set in the 19 teens. So a period piece, a film that we refer to as a period piece, is any movie that is set in a time other than when it was made. So any movie that portrays a historical period that was earlier from when it was made, we refer to as a period piece. So as I've said, Days of Heaven is an atmospheric film that has less of an emphasis on the story than on the character relationships and on the mood that is created by the look of the movie and the location and the setting of the movie. Now, this is not to say that there's no story in Days of Heaven. I don't want to mislead and suggest that there's not a narrative that takes place. There is a narrative involving Richard Gere and his girlfriend and sister who work on this wheat farm and get involved with the life of the farmer who owns this farm. So there certainly is narrative events that take place in the movie, and things that the characters do, and things that propel a plot forward, but at least as important and probably more important than that from Malik's perspective and from our perspective as viewers is the character relationships amongst these characters, and then the look of the film and the atmosphere or mood that is created in the film. So what should you be watching for as you screen Days of Heaven? Watch the quality of light. This respect of cinematography in terms of the quality of light is one of the central things involved in cinematography. And so watch for how light is used in the movie, especially in all of the many exteriors on the wheat farm, which we see quite a few of as workers are threshing the wheat and doing other things, tending the wheat fields. And part of that, of course, is this golden glow that is created from the film having been shot, or many parts of it having been shot during this period called the magic hour. Watch for some of the other techniques of cinematography as well. Deep or shallow focus, high key or low key lighting, and the other ways in which light is manipulated and used in the film. See if you can notice the depth of field and whether a shot has deep focus or shallow focus, whether there's high key or low key lighting, and just see if you can begin to notice those sorts of things in a movie. Pay attention to camera movement as well, as another aspect of cinematography and how and when it is used in the film. And even though this week, of course, our topic is cinematography, I do not want you to forget everything that you've learned about mise en scène or quit applying in film analysis everything that you've learned about mise en scène. Our process of learning film analysis that we're going through over the course of this semester is a cumulative process in which each week, as we learn about new aspects of film style and film narrative, you'll add that to what you have previously noticed or learned, and by the end of the semester, we'll have a full complement or a full arsenal of different analytical tools and understanding of analyzing all sorts of different aspects of movies that you can apply to viewings of movies that you see. And so this week you are going to be applying your growing analytical skills in terms of analyzing movies to the film Days of Heaven.